Hello, I'm Neil Armstrong from TribePad, and I'm going to show you some tools for post-pandemic talent acquisition. Specifically, I'm going to be sharing some case studies, data and insights into how recruitment leaders in some of the world's best known firms are handling volume recruitment at the moment. I'm going to talk you through hiring at scale in a post-pandemic world, specifically volume recruitment. The world has changed considerably. The applications per role is on the increase and you need to be able to handle that. I'm going to demonstrate some tools that are going to help with that. Video interviewing is a really obvious one at the moment. Even your nan's using Zoom for her Zumba class. Onboarding is also extremely important at the moment in terms of the old methods aren't working right now. Even if you're not recruiting at the moment, perhaps you're thinking about how to bring this broken process up to scratch. Okay, let's get into some data. Comparing 2018 and 2019, we saw an increase of about a third in the average number of applications per role. This is based on TribePad data, by the way. But what we've already seen in 2020 is that has nearly doubled to an average of 94 applications per role. With 600,000 people being made redundant, 9 million on furlough, that is an awful lot of people who are going to be applying for your roles within the next year. So, who are TribePad and how do we know about volume recruitment? Well, we are a complete talent acquisition suite comprising applicant tracking system, onboarding, video interviewing, CRM and chatbot. We're used by more than 20 million people worldwide and we've grown over the last 10 years, largely based on recommendation. We're used by some of the world's best known organisations, particularly where they've got really specific requirements, where standard off-the-shelf SaaS platforms just can't handle their specific needs. Likewise, they may well be looking for service levels that some of the big global software behemoths just can't handle. So we focus specifically on talent acquisition. One of the things that we also do is we provide a freelance management system. So a lot of recruiters right now are changing the mix of their workforce, shifting towards more contractors and freelancers than employees. Our system is used by the BBC, for example, for all of their off-screen talent. It's also used by professional services firms to manage day rate contractors. And in the past few months, we've been providing our software free of charge to a number of different charities who've been coordinating COVID volunteers and the response effort there. Okay, so let's talk about that volume recruitment, the problems it's generating and the opportunities to solve those challenges. So on the 18th of March, the environment for TA completely changed in the UK. Mass redundancies, literally millions of hourly workers suddenly didn't know where the rent money was coming from. But supermarkets in particular went on a hiring spree. So this is data from Tesco, who would normally see about 20,000 applications a week, which they would manage through the TribePad platform. In just 1 week, in the beginning of March, they had 1 million applications. That led to 45,000 new roles in just 1 week. Now, you'd think that that volume would cause a nightmare for them and their candidates, but actually with the right processes and the right tools in place, you can still deliver a great candidate experience. And that can result in incredible time to hire, as you can see from these messages, but also a positive brand impact. And that's really important for recruiters and recruitment leaders, because if you're seeing 94 people, 93 of whom are going to be unsuccessful in the role, it's really important that those people go away with a good impression of your organisation, because it can be revenue affecting if not. Not everything goes perfectly, of course. This is an example of the comedian Jason Manford, who applied to a job at Tesco and was unsuccessful. But look how quickly Tesco were able to update their communications to keep their candidate up to date and again keep all of those really important associations with the brand positive. Now, there's lots of other ways that we can deal with volume recruitment. Clients, particularly in retail and hospitality, are used to having annual surges. So what's really important is to be able to adapt quickly to that, change the content and campaigns, create easy to administer landing pages which have all the right tracking and links through to the application process. Because at different parts of the year, you've got very different requirements. Another example of that would be one of our long-standing customers, Sodexo. They've been involved very closely with government recruitment for COVID testers across various different sites in the country. So again, they've had to do some very rapid recruitment, specific campaigns, make sure they've embedded videos within these little micro sites, because these roles are very sensitive and you have to explain exactly what the roles are about. They've created an incredibly simple application process. shorter than the usual sorts of application process they might use for nursing roles or prison officers, for example, where there are much higher levels of compliance needed. So it's a way of generating and handling large numbers of applications very, very quickly, and again providing feedback very quickly to those candidates who are perhaps out of work and desperately looking for something new. So making it really easy to connect with Facebook or LinkedIn and upload their CV profiles. Another important way that Tesco and other people use our platform is through auto scoring, auto shortlisting and auto rejecting candidates. So this is a case of building up a series of questions which have scores against them, could be killer questions as well, and they work in a way that a candidate who meets a certain threshold is automatically moved through into the shortlisted category, for example. A candidate who falls below a certain threshold is automatically rejected with a nicely formatted, nicely worded email. And these assessments can be questions and screening questionnaires that are built within your system. Or they can be integrated assessments from the likes of SHL, Chemistry, Amberjack, those sorts of things, where the candidate is sent to a screening questionnaire outside of the system, the scores brought back in, and again, all sorts of different rules used. So if I give you a couple of examples here, so Card Factory, they had 50,000 applications a week during September, October and November last year, have a hugely seasonal business of retail assistants coming into the store. Likewise, this doesn't have to be just about seasonal work. Tesco, for example, handle 20,000 graduate applications every year with a team of just 2 people by using some of these integrated assessments. You can see on the screen here that as well as screening assessments, you can have integrations with right to work checkers. So many of our healthcare clients, for example, have to get very clear compliance checks in the process, and that can take time. So one of our clients reduced their time to hire by 30% and mitigated compliance risks by using these automated integrated right to work checks. Another area that's really important in hiring at volume is the interview booking process. This can be hugely time consuming and very frustrating for hiring managers and recruiters. It can be a really big source of frustration and dropouts for candidates as well. If the process isn't really simple, you want to be able to make sure that you can provide all the information that candidate needs in terms of information that they may need to bring to the assessment, to the interview, things they have to do beforehand. Likewise, it's crucial that your hiring managers understand exactly what's happening. They have invitations automatically put into their diaries. There's no chance of clashes, and you can create new interviews on the fly, or you can assign interviews to people who've already lined up their diaries ready for this. So it's about getting the basics right, but it really does make a huge difference, because this sort of thing, when you're operating at scale, can cause a real drag for the organisation. Okay, so video interviewing. A lot of organisations were already using video. Lots of us have had to adopt this in a real hurry. If we look at video interviewing at scale, the most common type of bulk video interviews are one way, where you're generally replacing a telephone screening interview. Loads of benefits in terms of reduced administration, reduced cost and reduced hassle, both for the candidates and the hiring manager. These can be reviewed on your iPad, on your sofa, on the train, wherever you are at the moment. And there's lots of benefits here in terms of the compliance of being able, recruitment leaders can review the decisions that have been made. They have evidence in case of concerns in the future. And there's a really strong way of tracking the compliance and bias within the process as well, because you have evidence at every stage. The benefits of specialist recruitment software that uses video interviewing, you can also get automatic transcripts by text, so that you can search for keywords that candidates have used, and you've got a complete script of what's happened that can be scored. And of course, once you have that script, you can potentially use that in different languages. So if you have international responsibilities, for example, where you're recruiting across different countries, we know many recruitment leaders right now are being asked to do more with fewer people in their team, having to broaden their responsibilities. So this is an area that can really help. And of course, you're probably not doing so many face-to-face interviews at the moment. So live video interviewing or two-way video interviews are a really important way of keeping the recruitment flowing at the moment. They have the benefits of being able to be, reviewed by multiple people, recorded and watched later. There's no risk of Zoom bombing, for example, because you're using proper video interviewing software that can be integrated with the rest of your talent acquisition stack. And in terms of keeping the candidates moving through the system, they shouldn't have to download a specific app or a piece of software as well. So this is about making sure that you're reducing dropouts and moving people through the process. Of course, this shouldn't just be about one-to-one interviews. You may well have early careers events and panel interviews, depending on what sector of the market you're in. So again, you can use these tools at your disposal today to replace and augment face-to-face hiring processes. So it's much, much more efficient for candidates and hiring managers. You're not having to get everybody in the same place at the same time physically. Let's talk about onboarding for a second. This is always a really hot topic for recruitment leaders, because whether or not you're responsible for the HR operations element of contract generation and pre-boarding and onboarding, when it goes wrong, the pain certainly falls at your feet. So re-recruitment can be extremely time-consuming and painful. So as I said earlier, whether you're currently recruiting a huge amount because you're very busy, or whether actually things are quiet and you're using the time to focus on how to improve your process, onboarding is an area where many customers are investing at the moment. There are some great pieces of standalone onboarding software out there. Also, good talent acquisition suites should have elements of onboarding built into them. And within these, you would expect standard features like being able to show the candidate your policies, getting them to agree to health and safety, discrimination policies, all those sorts of things that you have to do as a new employee. You should also be able to capture information from the candidate, both in terms of them uploading files, which might be documents, a proof of right to work. It could be getting them to answer particular questionnaires, for example. So telling us your shoe size or information for uniform, for example. A lot of these tools will have reference systems built in as well. Again, there are standalone referencing tools, but it's important that those are integrated into your stack, so it doesn't become an administrative overhead to understand what's going on. Some systems should also allow you to deal with quite complex employment history capture. So, for example, in healthcare, finance, or government, you may need some quite complicated date gap mapping, and of course, the ability for candidates to watch welcome videos. And on that point, it's really important here that as well as being a compliance tool and an administrative saving tool, it's really important that your onboarding software should be developing a fantastic human connection and a great candidate experience. This, particularly while we're all so remote, it should be about developing a really on-brand, warm welcome to the company. Of course, it needs to be mobile optimized. Of course, it should be easy to revisit. So the candidate doesn't have to sit down and go through a 3-hour long onboarding process. They should be able to drop in and drop out with the right notifications, reminders, and gamification to make it simple and enjoyable for the candidate. But you make sure they get all the way through the process, and your must-have information, so next of kin details, for example, you make sure that those are captured, and again there are reminders and alerts in the system. Crucially, you're going to want an e-signature on the contract, and you're going to need to add this employee to payroll. So secure, easy to use ways of capturing that data is absolutely vital. So obviously it wants to be warm, video welcome for the candidate, but actually there's huge benefits to recruiters and recruitment leaders in particular on the compliance aspects here of managing that onboarding pipeline while everybody is remote and understanding what your increasingly dispersed workforce is doing, getting rid of those spreadsheets and paper because they're so hard to manage. And it's really important to actually have real-time truth of who's where in the process, who's getting held up, and where are the risks of candidates dropping out, where's the risk of failed recruitment here. So huge benefits in terms of administration reduction, great candidate experience, and better hiring outcomes. So onboarding of all things that can help in volume recruitment should be a really simple business case to make in terms of the return on investments of new starters being more effective, less likely to drop out, better hiring outcomes, and fundamentally better profits for the business because our new starters are going to be more effective more quickly. So to conclude, we're all volume recruiters now. Application rates were already high and they've already doubled in 2020. So post-pandemic, recruitment leaders are going to need to ensure their processes and technology can handle this increase. Whether you need to maximize applications or screen out people quickly, you need to be able to vary that process. So being able to respond to changes in market conditions will help you maintain efficiency for your teams and deliver a great candidate experience. And talking of candidate experience, that is more important than ever. It is possible to deliver, and it's essential to deliver a great candidate experience. You really can't afford to damage your reputation. People are looking on Glassdoor more than ever right now. Post-pandemic, many people think that candidates are going to remember how they were treated by companies and institutions during this time. So we think it's vital that recruitment leaders see these spikes in volumes as short-term issues that mustn't cause a longer-term brand damage. When the basics are right, consider the value adds. Things like chatbots can be a great way for recruitment leaders to help engage passive candidates who are browsing and bring them into the application process. They can really help people find useful information 24/7 without consuming your valuable recruitment resources during working hours. And that's important for lots of different reasons. Video interviewing, of course, is here to stay. It's going to save huge amounts of time and money for you and the candidate. Typically, one-way video interviewing can save about 90% of administration time and results in a more relaxed and realistic view of the candidate. Live video interviewings can be used obviously as replacement for face-to-face one-to-one interviews and panel interviews. The much more efficient use of time for recruiters, hiring managers and candidates. Typically you should be expecting that a video interview should be costing you less than £5 per meeting, which is a huge saving compared to meeting rooms, travel and all that logistical hassle. In a volume recruitment world, e-contracts, remote onboarding, they're an absolute must-have functionality post-pandemic. We know that really good onboarding systems improve your retention rates, reduce time to productivity, so they're really key measures of business success. So this should be a no-brainer business case for most organisations. And talking about how you get hold of the data is just as critical in a world where recruiters are expected to do more with less resources. So post-pandemic, budget is going to be tight, resources must be justified, investments will be scrutinised. So recruitment leaders really need to think about how to demonstrate their effectiveness to the finance team, but there are other peers across the business who are all going to be being asked to make cuts at this time. So you have to be able to handle more volume with less resource. The key positive I think to leave you with is this isn't about tomorrow's AI whizziness. This is about today's capabilities. It's about getting the basics right with a clear ROI and really clear business benefits that recruiters can really demonstrate their value to the business as a whole. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that.